Welcome back, everybody, to the Seattle Sonics MyNBA franchise here on NBA 2K22. Today's episode should be a fun one. The 2025 NBA Draft is here. The draft is always one of my favorite videos each season of the series, so today should be a lot of fun. Last episode, we kicked off the offseason. We did everything that leads up to the draft, including the NBA Draft Lottery, which was ultimately won by the Philadelphia 76ers, who had the 15th best odds of getting the number one pick. The Sixers won the finals just a couple of seasons ago, so for them to get the number one pick is a really, really big deal. They weren't even supposed to get a first-round pick entirely because it was top 5 protected. It would have gone to Brooklyn had they stayed at 15. But not only did the Sixers pick move into the top 4, but obviously they will be picking number 1 overall. Our Sonics did not get as lucky. We ended up with the 17th overall pick from the Pelicans. But as you guys know, I always like to dance around the board, whether that's moving up or moving down. So chances are we're going to have some trades sprinkled in there, and we're not just going to have pick 17. This is a really fun group of players. We previewed this draft class as a whole in the last episode, so in case you missed that, I'll leave a card at the top right of your screen just so you can get some more information on all of these players. If you are on the PlayStation 5 and would like to download this draft class, you can. It is available on the 2K Vault. If you type in Sonics Draft 4, since this is the 4th draft class of the series, then you'll be able to use all of these guys who are going to be drafted today. If you would like to use the other draft classes in this series, they are also available on the Vault. Sonics Draft 1 is the first draft, Draft 2 is the second draft class, and Draft 3 is last year's class. Pretty straightforward. And then there you go. You can use all these guys. You can edit them to how you wish. And yeah, have fun. So as we look at this draft here for our Seattle Sonics, we really have to figure out how we can put ourselves in the best position to not only repeat as champions next year, but set ourselves up for the long term. If we stay at pick 17, I'm confident we're going to get a good player because there's a lot of talent in the middle of the first round this year. But as you guys know, I always like to dance around the draft board. Maybe the board doesn't play out well and we want to move down. Maybe a top prospect slips and we want to move up like we did with Kyril Story 2 years ago. Even though the 17th pick is the only selection we have in this year's draft, we have 4 first-round picks in the next 2 seasons, and we also have guys like DeJounte Murray, Uzoma Chukwuemeka, and Octavius Macon, whom we could trade if we wanted. One more thing here before we start the draft, and that is trades around the league. You guys know I like to make big moves around the rest of the NBA, and today is no different. We're going to start with a big 3-team deal involving the Bulls, the Pelicans, and the Nets. The Bulls are hitting the clean reset button, trading RJ Barrett to the Pelicans. New Orleans needs a second star for Zion, so why not get his college buddy in RJ Barrett? Going back to Chicago will be Talen Horton-Tucker, who has switched teams about 15 times during this series. Harry Fisher, the 7-foot point guard drafted in the first round last year, along with the 8th pick. I think that's fair value for Barrett, who's an all-star caliber player. And then with this trade, Nikola Vucevic is going to the Nets for Miles Turner and a future first-round pick. The Nets are kind of desperate with their big 3 of KD, Kyrie, and Bradley Beal, so they're going to add a 4th star with Vucevic. The Pelicans add another star with Zion, and the Bulls can rebuild, getting a lot of young assets. Saddiq Bey has been a good pickup for the Jazz the past 2 seasons, but they want to accumulate more lottery selections, so they are trading him to the Magic for the 11th overall pick, along with some second-round pick swaps as well. I know on paper this looks like a great deal for the Magic, considering that first-round pick is only 2 stars, but I think the 11th pick pretty much is about fair value for a guy like Saddiq Bey for a situation that the Jazz are in when they are completely rebuilding. This trade, I think, makes a lot of sense. Picks 9 and 10 from the Blazers going to the Mexico City Capitanes for the 5th pick. If you look at the Blazers roster, they have done a great job of accumulating young talent, but they're missing that young star. This is a 5-player draft, so the Blazers will have an opportunity to select a blue-chip level talent with the 5th pick, which is what I think they need. As for Mexico City, they do have a franchise player in Prince Ezequiel, but they don't have a whole lot with him. So now they're adding 2 lottery picks in which they can add 2 possible starters for their future. I think this trade makes perfect sense for both sides. The Capitanes get to add 2 players, and the Blazers get to add 1 really good player. Here's probably the most notable trade of the day. Tyrese Maxey, 2 first-round picks, and a second going to the Lakers for Kyrie Irving. Lonzo Ball was really good last year, but I think the Lakers want to give him another star. and that's going to be Kyrie Irving, who's been linked to the Lakers in real life. He's probably not going to be traded to them this season, so why not trade him to the Lakers in the game? The Nets add a young piece with Tyrese Maxey, and although Brooklyn's core of KD, Bradley Beal, and Nikola Vucevic is a little bit older, with adding these first-round picks, with adding Tyrese Maxey, they don't have that bad of the future. The Nets have a nice arsenal of picks and a few interesting young players. Now they have 2 first-rounders this year, so I really like the position Brooklyn has put themselves in for the long term, but also the short term as well. So, right before I hopped into the draft, I actually did some exploring in the trade finder for our team. What would it take to move up to, let's say, pick 5? And I more so did this out of curiosity rather than seriously trying to move up here. But when I went into the trade finder, the Blazers offered us pick 5 for DeJounte Murray straight up. I'm not going to do this trade specifically because I don't think it makes that much sense for Portland. But I do want to keep the door open on the possibility of a DeJounte Murray-centered trade package to help us move into pick 5 range or so. There's one player Portland really wants, so if he doesn't fall to pick 5, maybe we can make some business. So let's get started. The Philadelphia 76ers, with the first overall pick, go with British point guard Silas Edwards, who played for Brewster Academy last season. I think this is the right pick here for the 76ers. Edwards is the most NBA-ready prospect in this draft at 6'6". He's a great scorer, playmaker, and defender. He just doesn't have the athletic upside you hope for. But for a team like Philadelphia, who is really good, they won the finals 2 years ago and are looking for a true point guard, this makes a lot of sense. Colin Sexton is a free agent. I imagine the Sixers will prioritize bringing him back. And I think a future backcourt of Colin Sexton and Silas Edwards could be really fun. So I think that's a great pick for the Philadelphia 76ers. The Montreal Royals at pick 2, looking for their franchise cornerstone after being one of the worst teams in the league last year in their inaugural season. And they select Masango Iyango, another high school prospect. He played for Simeon Academy last year in Chicago. Iyango is a little bit more raw compared to some of these other blue chip prospects, but he has a higher ceiling, in my opinion, than anybody in this draft class, which is why he is the selection here at 2. And for what it's worth, this is the player the Portland Trail Blazers were hoping would fall to 5. So now that he is off the board, the Blazers are a lot more open to trading this 5th pick. The DeJounte Murray deal is still there, and again, I don't think this trade makes a whole lot of sense for Portland, so I decided to play around with some counter offers possibly involving the 5th pick. What I'm really trying to do is trade DeJounte Murray, pick 17, and Octavius Macon for picks 5, 25, 35, and a first-rounder in 2 years. It wasn't really working, so I decided to add a 3rd team in. Timbaku Toraminko is a talented player on the Blazers, but if they get Octavius Macon, they don't really need a center. So I wanted to throw in the Washington Wizards, who'd be willing to trade the 15th pick for Toraminko. The Wizards are being very willing to do this, but the Blazers, on the other hand, are being quite stingy. I think this deal for Portland is better than just DeJounte Murray for the 5th pick, because this way, Portland will still have 2 first-rounders this year at 15 and 17. They're still getting a player like Octavius Macon as well, but it is just not working. I eventually added a bunch of stuff from Washington. They said no, which makes sense, but the Blazers, unfortunately, are still saying no. So I coughed up our 2028 first-round pick. I figured if we're adding that Blazers pick in 2027, which I think could be quite valuable, I'd be okay with trading one of our future picks. I kept on adding our second-round picks. I really thought this was going to work, but Portland was just being so unwilling. I'm literally offering the Blazers like 7 second-round picks along with 3 ones, Murray and Macon. This is probably a better trade for them than just Murray for the 5th pick, and the Blazers are saying no. The Wizards are also not willing to give up too much, which again makes sense because they don't want to get fleeced. I was literally trying here for a good 40 minutes. I even was willing to cough up our first-round pick next year because, again, I think we are going to be quite good in 2026, and the Blazers are still saying no. Maybe they'd like a guy like Dorian Finney-Smith, possibly. He's a good veteran role player. The Blazers said yes, but now Washington says no. So I take Washington out of the equation. I wanted to try this. Now that I'm willing to trade our 2026 first-round pick, maybe we can add some second-rounders as well. They say no. I took out the second-round picks. So Murray, 2 ones, and Macon. And they offer as a counteroffer our 2029 pick for Furkan Korkmaz. I didn't really want to do that. I don't want to trade a first-round pick for Furkan Korkmaz, so I added seconds. They said no. And then I went back to this counteroffer. the first rounder in 2029 for Korkmaz, and I think I'm willing to do it. So it's DeJounte Murray, 3 first-round picks, including the 17th pick this year, and Octavius Macon to the Blazers for picks 5, 25, 35, a first-rounder in 2027, and Furkan Korkmaz. So this is the deal we are going to do. DeJounte Murray has been a great player for us the past year and a half. He was our starting point guard on our championship team, and he will forever be a Sonic legend, but I just want to get younger and a little bit more explosive at the point guard position. Cairo Nazarenka out of France and Lorenzo Lawson out of Nebraska are both pretty good options, and if both of them go at picks 3 and 4, then we'll get Nigerian center Yazid Nkrumah Bekazizwe, who's probably the best player in the draft class. So I'm willing to do this. Even though DeJounte Murray is really good, we're putting ourselves in position to draft a blue-chip level talent, and we're getting cheaper as well. We're opening up money for the offseason. Maybe we can sign a big-name free agent. Octavius Macon as well is a guy I like. We picked him in the first round last year. He got minutes sparingly off the bench as a rookie. He didn't really play a whole lot in the postseason, and I do like him as a future piece long-term, but I think doing that trade is worth it. So the Seattle Sonics have moved into the top 5. We went from having 1 pick to 3. We have picks 5, 25, and 35 now. We gave up a couple future first-rounders, but we also acquired Furkan Korkmaz, who I think has the value of a first-round pick. So I think we can still get a draft pick in the future out of Korkmaz, or maybe we can use him in a deal if we need to move up. We're probably not going to move up here at 5, but maybe if we need to move up from 25 or 35. So I think chances are the guys we're going to look at are Yazid Nkrumah Bekazizwe, who I doubt falls to 5. We don't need a center, but he's probably the best player in the draft class. Assuming he's gone, we'll have at least one of Lorenzo Lawson or Cairo Nazarenka on the board. I think both of them can be starting caliber point guards right away and would do a very strong job of replacing DeJounte Murray. There are other good players on the board, so maybe we realize we don't really want whoever falls to 5, and maybe we want to dip down for a guy like Victor Hines Jr. or Sanjay Waweru, somebody like that. So let's get back into it. The Spurs are on the clock here at pick 3, but not for long. They are sending this pick to the Boston Celtics in exchange for Jaylen Brown and Kelly Oubre. Boston has kind of been stuck in the middle for a while, so I think trying to hit the reset button is a pretty good idea for the Celtics. As for the Spurs, they're trying to win basketball games. They have a really good scorer in Jayon Azkaban, who they drafted a few years ago. They have Domantas Sabonis, who's an all-star level player. So now you add a guy like Jaylen Brown on the wing. That's a really interesting big 3. The Boston Celtics will be trading up for Nigerian center Yazid Nkrumah Bekazizwe. 7'4", 270 pounds. He is a monster. He isn't the most skilled. I don't think he's as good of a prospect as somebody like Deo Emembanigba, who was the #1 overall draft pick 2 years ago by the St. Louis Spirits. But I think this is a good move for Boston, and I don't really mind it for San Antonio either. This means at least one of the 2 point guards will fall to pick 5. The only team ahead of us is the Oklahoma City Thunder. They would not go with either of the point guards. They go with Michael Jordan, the French Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is a little bit raw, but he's one of the youngest players in the draft at 18 years old. And Oklahoma City just adds to their abundance of youth. They do have to pay Giannis Antetokounmpo in the offseason, along with Josh Giddey, but the Thunder have really done a great job of positioning themselves as a great team in the West for years to come. So the Seattle Sonics are now on the board at pick 5. I figured I would probably stay here and pick a player, but it doesn't always hurt to look at the trade finder, see if there's an offer we like. Long story short, all of these trades pretty much sucked. I wasn't anticipating on moving this pick to begin with, but if you're going to offer us a deal of Luguentz Dort and Mo Bamba for the 5th overall pick, then yeah. An even worse one, Ivica Zubac and CJ McCollum. Like, these offers are horrible. So again, I wasn't planning on trading it, but these offers kind of made it official that we would not be parting with this pick. We are going to select a player. As I said, there are 5 blue-chip level talents in this class, and 2 of them are still on the board, both at point guard, Lorenzo Lawson and Cairo Nazarenka. Lawson is 6'7" with a 7'3" wingspan. He's the better shooter, better defender, equal playmaker, better athleticism. As for Cairo Nazarenka, he's a little bit smaller, but he's the smarter player right now. I think he's the more consistent player right now, And for a team like us, maybe we would rather go for the more NBA-ready player rather than somebody who's a little bit more raw but has the physical tools to be great. We could also surprise, go with a guy like Sanjay Waweru, Ikenu Chukwumereji, Victor Hines Jr. There are plenty of other good players behind those two guys if we don't think Lawson and Nasarenka are actually true blue-chip level talents. So, with all that being said, I think I know who I want with this selection. With the 5th pick in the 2025 NBA Draft, the Seattle Sonics select point guard Lorenzo Lawson from the University of Nebraska. The Nebraska Cornhuskers get a top 5 pick. Lawson comes in as a 78 overall. He's a really talented player, and I think his explosiveness paired with Oscar J. Basilin, one of the most explosive guards in the league, look out. Lorenzo Lawson is a talented player. He can drive inside. He's a great finisher. He's a pretty good shooter, but he's not just a scorer. He's a really good playmaker on offense, and I have confidence in him running an offense. He's a great defender as well, and obviously the athleticism certainly pops off. Lorenzo Lawson has been a big-name player in the high school basketball circuit for a few years now. A lot of people questioned if he really was a good actual basketball player, and at Nebraska this year as a freshman, he absolutely showed that he did. Lawson was known as a scorer throughout high school and more of a highlight dunker, and yes, the dunks are pretty sick, like that one, but he is not just a dunker, don't get it twisted. He's a great passer, great floor general, great defender. He's really improved as a shooter throughout his time at Nebraska, and I think he really contributes to winning basketball. He's a pretty smart player. Look at him perfectly reading the inbound, taking it on the fast break, and throwing it down. Lorenzo Lawson, I think, can be a day one starter for the Seattle Sonics and the long-term backcourt partner with Oscar J. Basilin. So Lorenzo Lawson is a Seattle Sonic. I'm really excited about this pick. I think he's going to be a super fun player, and I think he is one of the 3 to 4 best players in this draft class. So for us to add another blue-chip level talent to the roster is a really, really big deal, and I cannot wait to see what Lorenzo Lawson ends up doing as a Seattle Sonic. Moving forward, now the Phoenix Suns at pick 6 have a pretty easy selection. They go with the last blue-chip player on the board, Cairo Nasarenka, the French point guard. He's a 78 overall. He's pretty much as good as Lorenzo Lawson. You really couldn't have gone wrong either way, but I think Lawson just has more length. I think he has more upside, and ultimately that's why I chose him over Cairo Nasarenka. But I think both of these point guards, along with Silas Edwards, who was selected number 1, are all going to be really, really good. This is a great guard class. Speaking of guards, we've got another one off the board here at 7 to the St. Louis Spirits as they select Victor Hines Jr. Not often do both teams who were in the NBA Finals have top 7 picks. So they add a really talented guard here with Hines, another Big Ten player. Hines and Lorenzo Lawson had their battles in college, and now they're going to be rivals here in the NBA, which should be pretty fun. The Chicago Bulls just got this pick from New Orleans in the R.J. Barrett deal. They go with Ikenu Chukwumereji, the younger cousin of Bwana and Uzoma Chukwumereji, who were top 10 picks within the past few years. Ikenu Chukwumereji is not as athletic as his two cousins, but he is a lot more skilled. Has some similarities to his new teammate Miles Turner, who I think could be a pretty good mentor for him. The Mexico City Capitanes with back-to-back picks go with point guard Kentrell Potts out of Louisiana Tech. I think this is a little bit early for Potts, especially with a guy like Leo Borratundo out of UCLA, a different point guard still on the board. Potts is a little bit younger, but I think Borratundo is slightly the better prospect, but Potts isn't bad either, so not a bad selection here for the Capitanes. And then with their second pick, after going guard, they're going to go with some size, selecting James Iadobo from UTSA. The Roadrunners getting a top 10 pick. Iadobo's more of a back-to-the-basket type of big man. I think if he was a little bit more athletic, I would agree with this pick, but his athleticism is a little bit low, so probably not the 2 picks I would have made if I was Mexico City, but neither of these players are too bad, and both will have an opportunity to make a big impact for them going forward. The Utah Jazz on the board at 11, they got this pick from Orlando in the Saddiq Bey trade earlier today, and that trade doesn't make any sense. Pascal Siakam for the 11th pick, no. Why would the Jazz do that? Saddiq Bey is better, younger, and less expensive than Siakam, so we're going to veto that trade. The Jazz go with Erasmus Vaughn out of Kansas State. The centers are going a lot earlier than expected. Vaughn, just like the last pick, James Iadobo, isn't the most athletic. He's more of a back-to-basket big. I think these last two centers were picked a little bit too early. The Jazz have made some head-scratching picks over the past couple of seasons, so I'm kind of curious really what their overall direction is. The Dallas Mavericks at pick 12 go with Illinois forward Sanjay Waweru. The Mavericks have to be kind of laughing because I don't think they expected Waweru to fall to the 12th pick, and seeing some teams pick very clearly worse players ahead of him makes this easy for Dallas. One of the best picks of the draft so far. Phenomenal move for the Mavericks. That'll bring us to the San Antonio Spurs at 13. They traded their third overall pick for Jaylen Brown, but they're not done. They've got another trade in the works, this time with the Phoenix Suns, as they're going to go out and acquire Mikal Bridges in exchange for this selection and Zach Collins. So the Spurs are going all in on a playoff spot, and they have four really good players with Jayon Azkavan, Domantas Sabonis, and now Jaylen Brown and Mikal Bridges. And I think those four players complement each other's skill sets really well. The Suns are moving up for Khalil Zaire, the power forward out of Montverde Academy. 6'4", 280 pounds. He is a Zion Williamson type of game. Not quite as athletic as Zion, but he is still one of the most athletic players in the class. Zaire won the Gatorade High School Player of the Year over Silas Edwards and Masago Inyango, who were the two top picks in this year's draft, for what it's worth. The Orlando Magic now on the board here at pick 14. They traded their first lottery pick for Sadiq Bey, and now they get Leo Baratondo. This is really good value here for the Magic. Baratondo is a great finisher inside. He's a phenomenal playmaker. Had a great season this year for UCLA. So as it stands now, we are 10 picks away from our next selection. There are currently 3 guys who I'm really eyeing up at the moment. So hopefully one of those guys falls. I'll let you know who they are once they start going off the board. And the Wizards picked one of them. Usher Sawyer Sage, a.k.a. USS Splash, out of Virginia Tech, the best shooter in the draft. Of the 3 guys I wanted, I thought it was the most likely Usher Sawyer Sage would fall to our next pick. And he's the first one of this next group of players who ends up falling off the board, which is a little bit of a surprise. So unfortunately, he is off the board, headed to Washington, giving them some more floor spacing for their point guard, De'Aaron Fox. The Kings at 16 picked Taven Dubois, the forward out of France. Dubois is the second of 3 players I'm really eyeing up. So of the guys I really want with our next pick, Dubois is gone, Sawyer Sage is gone. There's only one other player I really want. Remember, we originally had pick 17 to start the day, so it could have been an easy selection here if we had never traded DeJounte Murray for the 5th pick. Not that I regret the deal, but we would have had a perfect pick at 17, gotten the guy we wanted, and now he's probably not going to fall to 25. That player was not Deshaun Jones, but he is really good. He's a 7'4" skilled big man joining the Portland Trail Blazers. So the guy I want is still on the board. I don't think he's really going to fall much farther. So because of that, I want to make a move. I want to trade up here to the 18th pick, which belongs to the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors have a really good young core, so hopefully they'll be willing to move down. So I wanted to see what it would take involving the 25th pick to move up to 18. They want 2 future first-round picks. That's just not going to happen. What about 2 future second-round picks, and we take Jared Butler out of the deal? They said no. They really want a future first-round pick, and I'm not really willing to do that. So what about Furkan Korkmaz along with 2 second-round picks and Jared Butler? I'd be willing to do this. They say no. They want a 3rd second-round pick. I'm not really willing to do that. I don't want to give up an additional first. I also don't want to give up 3 twos. So I'm not willing to go that far. As much as there's a guy I really want, I do have backup plans who wouldn't be bad either. Marquise Ramsey was one of those backup plans. He was not my target, but he is quite solid. He ends up going a little bit later than expected. I thought he was going to go more so in the 10 to 12 range, so I'm a little bit surprised he fell this far. A super athletic wing who will join a really talented Toronto Raptors squad. These next couple of teams I don't think are going to pick the guy I want, so we're not going to try to move up. Well, the Minnesota Timberwolves at 19 aren't going to pick anybody at all. They're trading this pick to the Golden State Warriors in exchange for Jason Preston. I think this is a questionable deal for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Golden State now moves up. Hopefully they don't pick the guy I want, and they select Chuma Nadaye out of Stanford. Nadaye was not my target, but he was another one of our backup options. So although this wasn't our guy, this also isn't good. Ndiaye is a really good 3-and-D player. He led Stanford to win the national championship this season. I think that's a good move here for Golden State, adding some more floor spacing and defense. He's the perfect role player for a contender like them. The Jazz at pick 20 go of South Korean point guard Seok Jin Ho. We don't need a point guard because we just drafted one at 5, so although Jin Ho is pretty talented, he was not the guy we had wanted. That'll bring us to the Atlanta Hawks here at 21. The Hawks do need the position of the player who I really want, so I think this is really where we've got to move up. We're only 4 picks away from our current selection, so I don't think this is going to be that hard to move up, hopefully. And the counteroffer, Furkan Korkmaz for a 2029 first-round pick. I am more than willing to do that. We're going to move up 4 spots from 25 to 21, and we're going to flip Korkmaz for a first-round draft pick. When we had originally gotten Korkmaz, my whole idea was to use him in a trade-up or use him to get a future first-round pick, and we do both. So we are now on the board here at pick 21. I again made it a point to look through the trade finder, and these deals aren't horrible, but there isn't anything that totally wows me here. So we're going to keep this selection again as I had planned, and we're going to pick the guy that we have been targeting all along. This is the player we would have selected had we kept the 17th pick. Now we're going to get him at 21. So the question is, who are we looking at? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, it is a wing. We have 4 heavily scouted wings who I all like in this range. Mysaki Moon, Hassani Carson, McLovin Ashby, and Teo Odiemi. They were all guys I had eyed up with the 17th pick when we originally had that selection. There's one guy in this group who I really, really like, and I'm willing to move up to get him rather than pick 25 and settle for one of the other wings here who I don't like as much. Moon is a good 3-and-D guy. Carson is a good offensive player, the best playmaker of the group. McLovin Ashby is the best shooter of the group. And Teo Odiemi probably has the most upside of the group. So you can't really go wrong either way. But of these 4, there's one that I really, really like of this group. I think the player we're going to select here is one of the 10 best players in this draft class. So now the question is, who is that player? With the 21st pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Seattle Sonics will be selecting small forward out of the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, Mysaki Moon. He's the guy I've been eyeing up here. The 3 players I really wanted going into the draft at pick 17 were Usher Sawyer Sage, Taven Dubois, or Mysaki Moon. Obviously, using that selection to move up for 5 kind of put a hit in my plans, but I made sure to get that additional first-round pick from Portland just so I could move up and get one of them, and that's exactly what we're doing here with Moon, who I think is going to be a perfect piece for us off the bench as a high-energy role player, and I think he does have the upside to not only be a starter, but a really good starter, maybe an all-star one day. Mysaki Moon was the best player on the best team in the country this year. UCLA only lost 1 game in the regular season before being eliminated in the Sweet 16 by Virginia Tech. Moon is going to be the perfect guy who can, step in, give us 20 minutes a game off the bench as a rookie. He shoots the 3-ball pretty well, and he's a good all-around scorer. He's a pretty good perimeter defender, and he's not a horrible playmaker. He's not as good of a playmaker as somebody like Hassani Carson, who was on the board for us to take, but I think Moon is a better defender than Carson. He's more athletic than Carson, and I think he's the better player. So I think this is a home run move here for our Sonics to move up, add a future first-round pick, and get Mysaki Moon. This is a great move and a really good draft here for our Sonics, adding so far Lorenzo Lawson and Mysaki Moon, and we still own the top pick in the 2nd round as well. The player I thought we were going to pick with that 2nd rounder is Chinese forward Isaac Liang, who was projected to go in the 60s. Some of the mock drafts had him sneaking into the end of the 1st round, but he goes here at 22. He is certainly worthy of being a first-round pick. I don't think this is a bad move by the Kings, who have had a really good draft today, but I'm just very surprised he went this early. Again, not a bad pick, but I was really hoping we would have the possibility of drafting him in the 2nd round, and unfortunately that's not going to be the case. The Nets with back-to-back picks start off with Hassani Carson. If Mysaki Moon had been picked before we had selected, Hassani Carson was the next guy on our board. So he ends up here with the Nets, B 3-point shooting, B playmaking. He's not a phenomenal defender, but he's not a horrible one either, and he's a pretty good athlete too. So overall, really solid selection here for the Nets, who have the very next pick as well here at 24. and they're going to stick with the theme of forwards as they draft the third UCLA Bruin here in the first round, Emil Alicine. So he's the third UCLA player to be selected after Leo Baratondo by the Magic, and obviously Maisaki Moon from us. Moving right along here, the Atlanta Hawks have the 25th pick, which they had just gotten from us. We originally got this pick from the Blazers earlier today, so this pick has been traded twice so far in this video, and the Hawks are going to go with McLovin Ashby, one of the best shooters in this draft out of Arizona State. So all the guys I wanted at pick 35 are falling off the board. Ashby's gone, Hassani Carson is gone, Isaac Liang is gone. This is not very good, and I don't think we're really in a position to move up. I don't really want to trade up currently, so we're just going to have to really hope that somebody good falls to the 35th pick. The Cleveland Cavaliers are next up. The first selection in the post-LeBron era. They go with Japanese forward Ando Kazuki, who will probably stay overseas for a year before joining the Cleveland Cavaliers next season as a possible rotation player. Only 19 years old with great athleticism. Certainly a solid upside pick. The Golden State Warriors moved up earlier in the day, but they kept their original first-round pick. They're going to stick with the theme of grabbing good role-play wings with Ayo Odeyemi from Nigeria. His twin brother, Teo Odeyemi, was a player we had considered with our 21st overall pick. I think Teo Odeyemi is the better of these two twins, but Ayo Odeyemi, who is more athletic and has more upside, is the first one off the board. So now we've got the Indiana Pacers here at 28. The Pacers have a really good young core with guys like Cole Wagner Jr., Jazz Jackson, Wendell Carter. They got a really nice thing going as they go with point guard Lawrence Sun from Tennessee. Really good offensive player. Not going to give you a ton of value defensively, but they already have a guy like Cole Wagner, who is their current starting point guard, and he's an all-NBA level defender. So for your backup, why not get somebody who's a really good scorer, really good playmaker? Another really good pick here by the Pacers, who have one of the best futures in our league. The Milwaukee Bucks at 29, they traded away Giannis Antetokounmpo last year. They're starting a new era. They go with forward Quint Vandermeulen from Belgium. He's a really good scorer. That's about it, but you can't go wrong with somebody who can score the basketball, who can space the floor, and he's not a horrible athlete either. He's actually an above-average athlete for his position. Not a bad pick here for the Bucks, who have a good group of young players with all the assets they got in the Giannis Antetokounmpo trade with Oklahoma City. The Clippers here at pick 30 going to go with 7'3" big man Neil Fry from the University of Oregon. Fry is a skilled big man who's a solid scorer. He's a very versatile defender. He's not great down low, but he does have the ability to switch onto the perimeter. He's not a phenomenal athlete, but I think he's going to be a solid role player. Maybe never a great starter, but he's going to be somebody who I think can get minutes for a long time in this league. The Toronto Raptors, with their second first-round pick of the day, go with Rasmus Snow out of Washington. He's a 6'6" wing who is a really good defensive player. Offensively, he's raw, but he's a good perimeter defender. He's a very good athlete, so this is more of a pick for upside, with Toronto, who's hoping they can add another piece to their young squad. The Charlotte Hornets here with the 32nd pick, coming off an Eastern Conference Finals berth a year ago, select Dwayne Johnson. He does not live up to his namesake because he is not built like The Rock at all. He is 6'9", 165 pounds. He's raw, he's skinny, but I think there is some upside with him late in the first round. Only a couple more picks here in round one, and remember, we have the first pick in the second round. We are almost up. The St. Louis Spirits, with their second first-round pick of the day, go with Ryanu Rondell. 6 foot, fourth high school player off the board today. So the Spirits are really focused on improving the guard position. With Russell Westbrook retiring, they need somebody who can replace him. So they hope Victor Hines Jr., the 7th pick, or Ryanu Rondell, the 33rd pick, can do that. The Pelicans originally got this pick from us last year in the Fred VanVleet trade, and they're actually going to be sending it away here in a trade to the Atlanta Hawks for their first-round pick next year. The Hawks are trying to jump us. They think there's a player that we really want, and they want to make sure they get him. Interesting move here by Atlanta, and they're doing it with our selection too, which is kind of some salt in the wounds. Sure enough, with this selection, the final pick in the first round, the Atlanta Hawks did end up selecting a player I ended up kind of wanting, with big man Kirkland St. Juste out of Wisconsin. St. Juste is one of the best shooters in this class. He's a very skilled big man. He's kind of similar to Octavius Macon, who we just traded away. He's not as good of a passer as Macon, but other than that, there are some similarities. St. Juste is definitely a player I would have looked at pick 35, so unfortunately, he is off the board for us here as we kick off the second round. Obviously, there are not as many good players on the board, so we're really it's pretty much a crapshoot at this point. We're really just trying to find somebody who can give us upside and hopefully give us minutes down the line. So this was a very fun and exciting first round, a big one for our Seattle Sonics, trading away DeJounte Murray and stuff for the 5th overall pick, and stuff which we used on point guard Lorenzo Lawson from the University of Nebraska. But we were not done there. Moving up to the 21st pick to select forward Misaki Moon. Sure enough, Moon, as a 75 overall, has the same rating as both Usher Sawyer Sage and Taven Dubois. Those are the 3 guys I wanted in the middle of the first round, and their ratings are all the exact same. They're all really good players. Other guys I liked in this range include Marquise Ramsey, Leo Boratundo, Chuma Nadaye. I didn't think Boratundo was going to fall this far, and I thought Nadaye and Ramsey were a little bit worse than some of these other guys. McLovin Ashby as well in that group too. When I got the 35th pick in the trade we made earlier today with Portland, I was anticipating we were going to select Isaac Liang, but he is off the board, so now we got to figure out who we want. The only player who's still on the board who we brought in for a pre-draft workout is Teo Odiemi, who we considered at pick 21, but we already drafted a wing, so maybe we don't want to do that again. There are some other good options scattered throughout the board, guys like Gear Hansen, Mickey Watt. We could go with one of the Boucher twins, Seth Randolph, Hamid Johansson, Tien-Chun Lee. A lot of good players here. So with the 35th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Seattle Sonics will select forward, or wing, I guess, Teo Odiemi from Nigeria. Even though we already selected a wing today, this is the second round. I'm not drafting for need. I'm drafting the best player on the board, and in my opinion, that is Odiemi. The 6'6", 280-pound shooting guard. He is built like a defensive end. It's like getting Jabari Achebe from the Eagles series and giving him a basketball. Teo Odiemi is a very talented player. Of course, his twin brother, Ayo Odiemi, was already picked by the Golden State Warriors. Teo Odiemi is not as athletic as his brother, but he is a better basketball player right away. He's not a great defender, unfortunately, but he's a good scorer. He's a good playmaker. And at just 20 years old, I think there's a lot to like with his game going forward. On the international circuit, he has really improved over the past couple years, always teammates with his twin brother. This is going to be the first time him and his brother are not on the same team. Even though his brother Ayo Odiemi is more athletic, this guy is still athletic in his own right, and he's a really smart player. Look at this possession. He gets the good shot contest, runs the floor, he waits to find the open man, draws the double team, gets to the open shooter, bang. His basketball IQ is really impressive for his age. I don't know how many minutes he's going to get as a rookie because we have so many good wings. So I think chances are Teo Odiemi will spend most of this season in the G League. But I think the upside with him is really good. And if we don't want to pay guys like Cam Reddish or Chance Dumas long term, he's going to be a good option to have as somebody who can give us quality minutes on the wings off the bench with his thick 6'6", 280-pound frame. So we're going to move quickly here for the rest of the second round. We're not going to go in depth with all of these selections unless there's one that's super notable. Unless we move our future second rounders to move back up, chances are our Sonics are done for the day. Gear Hansen to the Celtics, that's a good pick. He's probably the next guy on my board after Teo Odiemi. Mickey Watts out of Baylor's another guy I like here. 7 foot, 252-pounded power forward. He can also play the 5 as well. The Utah Jazz go with center Alex Mack. Is this the football player Alex Mack who also happens to play center? Well, the NFL Alex Mack isn't 7'1". The first of the Boucher triplets is off the board. I thought Max was the one who was going to go last of the group, but instead he's the first one of the Boucher clan to go off the board. He goes to the Nuggets. The Atlanta Hawks here at 42 go with Hamon Stewart out of Jamaica. Hamon, is that ham in Spanish? Is his name technically Ham? Is that how this works? I don't know. Jackson Farrell Pinto from Vermont to the Kings. That's a really good value pick. The Sacramento Kings are having a really good draft. You don't get to say that too often about the Kings, but I think they're doing a great job today, really getting good value with all of their selections with Taven Dubois and Isaac Liang in the first round, 2 guys who I really liked. Hami Johansson out of Finland going to the Orlando Magic. Good value selection for the Magic, who I think have also had a really good day, adding Sadiq Bey, Leo Borratundo as well. Chris Gentry to the Minnesota Timberwolves, who traded out of their first-round selection, getting a talented big man here in the middle of the second round. Mike Boucher, the second of the three Boucher triplets off the board. He ends up with the Brooklyn Nets, giving them some size behind Nikola Vucevic. The Nuggets get D'Angelo Levine, a 6'8" skilled guard out of the University of Illinois. The Spurs with back-to-back picks start with forward Lodji Sifa out of France, the fourth French player off the board. The first three were selected in the lottery, and with their other pick, they go with Ulf Fredriksson from Portland. I guess he's probably international as well. You know, the Spurs love their foreign players. Andrew Carver out of Central Michigan to the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks have had a nice draft. They've really gotten good value with all of their selections today. The Oklahoma City Thunder go with Hakeem Isaac, a talented Nigerian guard. Only about 10 or so more picks to go. The Pelicans get Jamal Clayfield, a 6'8" point guard from Iowa. They traded their 7-foot point guard at the beginning of the video, so now they get a point guard who's a little bit smaller. The third and final Boucher triplet is off the board as Mitch goes to the Dallas Mavericks. The Raptors get big man Timmy Green out of Seton Hall. Big guy, 7'1", one of the strongest players in this year's draft class. The Kings with another really good value pick, getting Jacob Judge out of Rutgers. I think the Kings have gone 4 for 4 with their picks today. Normally they're 0 for 4, but they have really done a good job throughout this draft. Dale Freeman from Southern Methodist University goes to Mexico City Capitane, so they end up with another big man. Marion Sutton from Northeastern to the Hawks. Here at the end of the draft, this is really where it becomes a crapshoot. It's hard to find players within the last 10 picks who ever become legitimately good players. You have your guys like Isaiah Thomas who sort of come out of nowhere and become really good, but it is very hard to find talented players in here. Seth Randolph at pick 60 to the Lakers. That's great value out of Alabama State, a 6'6" wing. I think he can give them quality minutes as a rookie. Mac Jackson to the Clippers out of Kansas, one of the best shooters in this draft class. He also has one of the best hairdos as well. TJ Williams from NC State to the Knicks. The Knicks haven't made any picks yet, but they have another selection here at 63, and they're going to end up with Sidney Reynolds out of Western Carolina University. So the Catamounts get an NBA draft pick. Only 5 more selections to go. The Atlanta Hawks get Monty Rush from Auburn. Good value at 64. I think he's certainly worthy of being drafted here late in the second round. The Spurs get Greek center Lambros Patsagoglu. He's going to be a draft and stash guy for the next couple of years, but he's got solid upside. Vladimir Varenko, the 4th UCLA Bruin to be selected. I, again, think he's worthy of being drafted, so that's a nice pick by the Wizards. Marquez Ingram out of Illinois. Again, great value for the Spirits, who add another guard. They've only drafted guards today. And then Mr. Irrelevant for the Timberwolves will be Jacob British, a 6'9" point guard out of Eastern Michigan University. So that's going to wrap up the second round. We only had 1 pick in round 2, which was the first pick of the round, getting Teo Odiemi, the 6'6", 280-pound Nigerian wing. There are some solid gems here in the second round. Guys who are in the mid-70s and overall. A lot of players who I think could be solid rotation players in the future. So definitely a very talented group here in the second round. And yeah, really fun draft class of players joining our league. This is a really exciting draft, not just with all of these good players being selected, but a lot of big trades. DeJounte Murray to the Blazers, Jaylen Brown and Mikal Bridges to the Spurs. There were teams not shying away from being aggressive, including our Seattle Sonics, who moved DeJounte Murray for the 5th pick. We moved up to 21 to get Misaki Moon. We also added Teo Odiemi as well. I think we had a really good draft. I'm very happy with how it ended up with us. 2 guys who are going to be high upside, minute getters as rookies, and Teo Odiemi is going to be good too, I think. Looking around the rest of the league, the Spirits did a good job adding to their guard depth. The Spurs, they are trying to win. They added Jaylen Brown and Mikal Bridges today. The Suns had a really good draft, in my opinion, with Nasarenka and Khalil Zaire. The Thunder with a little bit of a surprise pick, going with Michael Jordan at 4. The Blazers had a big day getting DeJounte Murray. They added Deshaun Jones with the 17th pick, which I thought was good value. The Warriors had a good day with Ayo Odiemi and Chuma Nadaye. The Wizards made a great pick with Usher Sawyer Sage, the best shooter in the draft. Misango Enyago going to the Montreal Royals at 2. I think he's going to be a stud. Silas Edwards to the Sixers at 1. I think he's going to be a stud as well. I think the teams at the top of this draft really made good selections, and I think normally you find a lot of these teams at the top are not good organizations, but the Sixers, the Royals, and the Celtics, they know what they're doing. So hats off to them for really making strong picks early. The Hawks had a big day, adding 6 rookies, including some good value in the first round with McLovin Ashby and St. Just out of Wisconsin. Moving right along here, the Jazz had an interesting draft. They traded away Sadiq Bey. They added a lottery pick. The Kings did really well. 4 good value picks with Dubois, Liang, Farrell Pinto, and Judge. The Kings had one of the best drafts in my opinion, which again, you don't say often. The Lakers had a good value pick late with Randolph. I thought the Magic had a good day, adding good value of all 3 of their picks. Sanjay Waweru, a great selection at 12. The Nets got good value with Carson and Alicini. Moving forward here, the Nuggets had a couple second-round picks who ended up pretty good. Lawrence Sun to Indiana was a good pick in the first round. The Pelicans had a big day, adding R.J. Barrett. The Raptors had some solid picks late in round 1 with Ramsey and Snow. And that's going to bring us back here to the Seattle Sonics, and that's going to wrap up the episode. I hope everybody enjoyed. As you guys know, these draft episodes take a lot of time for me to produce, so I'd really appreciate a like and a sub if you have not already. Let me know what you thought of our draft class along with the draft around the rest of the league. Next episode will be free agency. We've got a lot of money to spend with DeJounte Murray off the books. How are we going to spend it? Make sure to like and subscribe, of course. Peace out.